Today, we're diving into a single legal document that tells an incredibly personal and complicated story. We're looking at what's called a bystander's report, and it details one mother's side of a 5-year custody battle that stretched across 2 states and really multiple court systems. So you might be asking, what in the world is a bystander's report? Well, it's a pretty important legal tool. You see, when there's no official court transcript, no official recording of what was said, the person appealing a decision gets to write their own detailed account of what happened. So everything we're about to talk about, it all comes from one of these reports. It is one person's official written memory of events, all submitted to an appeals court. All right, to make sense of all this, here's how we're going to break it down. We've just covered what a bystander's report is. Next, we'll see how this whole thing kicked off in Illinois. Then we'll get into the messy jurisdictional fight between the 2 states, look at a really controversial court order from 2022, and finally, see how a last-ditch effort was ultimately dismissed. Okay, so that brings us to our first big chapter, how this all began in Illinois. According to this report, this is the very beginning, the catalyst for a legal fight that would spiral into a years-long battle over children, jurisdiction, and what the mother felt were her fundamental rights. This timeline really gives you the 30,000-foot view. You can see it starts in Illinois back in 2020. Then by 2021, 3 of the kids are moved down to Florida. In 2022, the mother follows them there, and that's when a really pivotal court order gets issued without her even being present. Fast forward to 2024 and 2025, and you see these attempts to sort out all the legal confusion, which, as we'll see, end with a final dismissal. According to the report, things just blew up incredibly fast. It says that on September 15, 2020, Heather Bendl filed to change her parenting agreement. Why? Well, the filing was tied to allegations of child abuse against the father. Almost immediately after, the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, reportedly removed the children from their daycare. And then, just a month later, based on the father's testimony, a judge made the children wards of the state. And that split, with kids and parents in different places, leads us right into the next huge issue that the report details, this absolute maze of jurisdiction. With the family and the case straddling both Illinois and Florida, the question of which court even had the authority to make decisions became this huge central fight. And when you look at it side by side, you can see right away why this got so messy. On one hand, you have Illinois. The whole case started there, the dependency hearings were there, and one of the kids actually stayed in the Illinois foster care system. But then you have Florida's connection, which is just as strong. The father moved there in 2020, 3 of the children followed in 2021, and then the mother herself moved there in 2022. It's just a perfect storm for a legal tug-of-war. Now, the language the appellant uses to describe all of this is incredibly strong. This is a direct quote from the report. She alleges that the children were, quote, effectively child trafficked through dependency court and the foster system. That one line, right there, really shows you the severity of the claims she's making about how this whole thing was handled. All of this jurisdictional chaos really comes to a head in our next section, which is all about this one controversial court order. The appellant points to this single event in April 2022 as the most damaging turning point in the entire 5-year saga, a decision that she claims wasn't just wrong, but was fundamentally illegal and changed everything. Okay, so picture this. It's April 27th, 2022. There's a hearing scheduled back in Illinois, but the report states that the appellant, Heather Bendl, couldn't be there. Why? She says she was having a documented medical emergency. Her absence from that hearing is the key fact that sets up everything that happens next. So, because she wasn't there, the judge issued what's known as an ex parte order. All that means is that it's a legal decision made by a judge when not all the people involved in the case are present. Now, they're allowed in some specific situations, but they can be really controversial for a pretty obvious reason. One side of the story isn't being heard. The report claims that during this ex parte hearing, the judge signed a 3-page order, and the appellant points to this very specific language in it, that it reserved Heather's rights. She alleges that this phrase, which sounds kind of neutral, was actually the legal move used to completely flip custody over to the father, and on top of that, create a new child support payment for her. So what did this order actually do in the real world? Well, according to the report, the impact was huge and immediate. It claims that ever since that order was issued, it's been used to block any and all contact between Heather and her children. She says it's been shown to schools and other places as if her parental rights were totally gone. And if that wasn't complicated enough, the report also alleges a really serious procedural problem. It claims that in January 2024, an Illinois judge made an off-the-record phone call to the court in Florida. The appellant argues that this is a direct violation of interstate laws that are specifically designed to keep things transparent. Those laws basically say any communication between courts in different states on a child custody case has to be on the record for everyone to see. And that brings us to the final chapter of the story as told in this report. This is what she presents as her last real attempt to get some kind of resolution. After what she describes as years of hitting brick walls in Florida, the appellant goes back to the Illinois court system to try and challenge that critical 2022 order. Okay, so the report lays out this sequence of events that just sounds incredibly frustrating. First, she files this petition in Illinois trying to get that 2022 order thrown out. A Zoom hearing gets scheduled. Great. But then the report claims the court suddenly changed the hearing to be in person with very little notice. And get this, the notification came in an email with no subject line. Since she's in Florida, she can't just travel at the drop of a hat, so she waits in the Zoom room anyway for over an hour, only for the judge to finally let her in just to tell her that her petition was dismissed. And the bystander's report ends with this absolutely devastating summary from the appellant's point of view. Her very last sentence claims, quote, ILC-19 has trafficked, abused, and destroyed these 4 children's lives, and Heather has lost 5 years. It's just a gut punch of an ending to her official account of this 5-year ordeal. And that, right there, is the story contained inside this one legal document. It's so important to remember. This bystander's report is one person's official written account, and it was filed for an appeal. It's not the final word. But what it does, and does powerfully, is it raises a much bigger question that goes way beyond this one case. In a justice system that is so complex, so overwhelmed, how do we make sure that every single voice is truly and fairly heard?